Welcome to the Chapter 12 mini-lecture. Now this chapter will be more complex than any of the other chapters in the textbook. It's important that you listen to this mini-lecture and also read Chapter 12 for yourself. Some of the information in this video will help you answer the Chapter 12 homework questions. Now in this course we have concentrated our studies on functional areas of the business and only recently have considered the planning elements related to opening a business. We have completed foundational research on our business and have looked at our internal and competitive environment. And at this stage our planning, we will be looking at these functions of the operation or the operating system, identifying the right location, planning facilities, evaluating the extent to which telecommuting is appropriate, and process improvement. Now, when we consider the original steps of starting a business, we have identified our product or service. We have studied the market for a product or service. We've determined what we need to do to open our business, started making our strategic plans, and now we are arriving at the final step, which requires the development of an operational plan. The operating systems include buildings, materials, equipment, and people, and when all of those elements are combined, we have an operating system. In fact, large parts of the operating system will be the same for every company, regardless of the product or service provided. All companies need a marketing department, a finance department, and an operational department. The elements of the operating system include a system for changing form, place, and time. It includes a sequence of inputs. It must contain skills, tools, and machines for change. Instructions and goods identification must be included. Plus, every operating system must include a time frame for completion. On a very foundational level, an operating system combines inputs and processes to generate outputs. Now, all three are considered part of the operating system. Inputs are things like labor, money, information, and supplies for materials. And processes can include employees, machines, and other factors that convert inputs into goods and services. And the outputs are the final goods and services in a form ready for delivery to the customer. Now, if we look at figure 12.1 shown in this slide, we are presented with examples of inputs, processes, and outputs. In the production of shirts, in the top one, the apparel business will combine cloth, thread, and buttons through a process that will move these inputs from storage to cutting to sewing to pressing to shipping. And the output, or the shirt, is sent to the customer as the final product. And the retail business that sells finished fitted suits purchases unfinished fitted suits from a supplier, displays them to the customer, sells them, measures the customer, and forwards those measurements to a tailor who will make the necessary alterations and deliver to the customer a fitted suit. And the restaurant, whose perfect finished good and service is a happy customer, provides food, and by properly seating the customer, taking the order, processing and preparing the food, and serving it in a pleasing way, the restaurant converts food to a pleasing experience that makes the customer happy. A computer software company takes information and creates a computer program. That process requires that they define the purpose of the program, design the system, install it, and test it. And this slide illustrates a very good set of examples of how inputs, processes, and outputs are all interrelated. In some companies, operations are called production. Now, in this slide, we are actually looking at figure 12.2 from the textbook. This figure offers an operational illustration on how to build a Whopper. In this figure, processing starts with the cooking of a meat patty. During the assembly process, rolls, mayonnaise, onions, tomatoes, pickles, and lettuce are all combined to build the sandwich, which is placed in a wrapper. And the final product is a Whopper. Now, technically, in a Burger King restaurant, there are actually three processes going on at the same time. The marketing system involves the order taking and payment for the Whopper. The production system results in the preparation of the hamburger and the packaging, and the delivery system results in the completed order being given to the customer. And you're ready to begin operations once you've identified your product input and processes. Operations involves selecting the right location, planning physical facilities, deciding on a layout, and implementing your plan. Now, there are many types of locations. For a retailer, a location is required to sell goods to customers. For a producer, the right location is required so that large volumes of materials can be received and converted into finished goods that other companies will sell. For a service company, the right location might mean one that allows for access by the customer and the producer. After all, for a service company, the customer may be just a regular individual customer or a commercial customer. So a service company could have both. Now, location is important for many reasons. Customers may prefer to visit businesses that are in their neighborhood. And of course, if you provide a specialized product, a customer might be willing to drive further. Customers will do business with you for all sorts of reasons. Customers might select your business because it is conveniently located, or because of the limited amount of time that they have to get to your business. They may prefer the quality and reliability of your products over those of your competitors, but because businesses are subject to patterns of activity and businesses tend to rely upon these patterns of activity, when a location is selected, most businesses intend to stay at that location for a very long time. From an operational standpoint, there are certain aspects relating to location selection that impacts all businesses in the same way. It really doesn't matter in what industry your business operates. Access to a suitable workforce is required. Every business needs to locate in an area where they can get supplies they need and the services they require. Cost are always decision drivers. Depending on the availability of property, the type property needed, and how the property will be used, and the cost of the transportation, the cost associated with the location of the business must be considered. When selecting an area for your business, you need to consider certain factors. Whether or not the businesses are located in a trade area can be very important for some businesses. A consultant may not be as concerned with the trade area factor, but a gas station would definitely want to locate their business in an area of high trade and activity. Population trends are important because most businesses require a certain amount of customer traffic. Purchasing power is very important. It not only impacts the business and its selection of location, but it can also have an impact on how much employees must be paid. For example, if a company is moving into a high-cost area, then they should expect to pay more for their business location. But in addition, they should also expect to pay the employees that work for them at that location a higher wage. And trade potential is another important factor. A business might decide to move into an area that has limited trade activity now because of projected growth in the vicinity in the coming months or years. Now, some companies will want to set up an operation close to their competitors. Have you ever noticed that where you find one fast food restaurant, you'll oftentimes find many? And on the other hand, some companies want to be located far away from any competition. Think about a nail salon or a temporary storage facility. Those types of businesses would not want to locate in an area that was already saturated with nail salons and storage facilities. Since shopping centers usually attract a high number of customers, there are some businesses that only want to locate in the shopping center. If a shopping center contains a Farm Fresh or a Food Lion as an anchor, or the anchor is the largest store, then the parking lot is usually full and there is a steady stream of traffic. If you owned a dollar store or a small clothing boutique, you might seek out a store location closer to a larger store. Producers have a different focus than that of retail establishments. Retailers want to attract walk-in customers. They need high traffic areas with a customer population that has money to spend. And producers are responsible for converting large volumes of inputs into finished goods or other outputs. They do not have customers walking in and out of their store, and the only parking they need is for their employees. Now, they need space for trucks coming and going and plenty of additional space to store materials and inventory. But they are completely different. Producers want to select a location that is close to the market they serve. That is why many producers will have several smaller manufacturing plants in different parts of the country, rather than one single plant in the middle of the country. A plant located in Atlanta, Georgia could supply products to the entire Southeast. A plant located in Pennsylvania could supply product to the Northeast and parts of Canada. A Midwest company could serve the heartland of the country, and a Washington plant could supply product to the western part of Canada, Alaska, and the western United States. Now, some producers use exceptionally heavy inputs or perishable inputs that are expensive to transport, and in those cases a producer would want to locate themselves closer to their vendors or their suppliers. Of course, they might spend more money shipping to their customers, but if the cost of shipping to their customers is lower than the shipping cost from their suppliers, they may prefer it. Because producers are dealing in high volumes, they typically employ a large group of people from the local community. So some producers will select their location based upon the availability of labor in the immediate area. Transportation is an important consideration. If a producer ships most of what they produce by truck, it might locate its plant near a key interstate or a commercial hub. Another consideration is energy. Producers use a large quantity of energy. Regardless of where they locate, they have to make sure that they will be able to obtain enough energy. Many times producers will attempt to work out volume purchase agreements with local energy companies to make sure that they're meeting their energy needs at the lowest possible cost. Like all businesses, producers have to deal with the government and pay their share of taxes. And especially in areas of the country where jobs are hard to come by, government will sometimes offer producers an incentive or tax reduction if they decide to relocate in their area. This typically attracts quite a few producers. Finally, because there are employees that are concerned about schools and recreational activities, producers will often attempt to locate in strong school districts and in areas where a high quality of life can be obtained. So let's go back for a minute and look at stores. There are basically three types of stores. Convenience stores usually carry low-priced items that customers purchase all the time. And shopping goods stores provide higher-priced items which are bought more frequently, and customers will generally compare prices. And the third type of retail store is a specialty goods store. And these stores carry high-priced shopping goods with trade names that are recognized for the exclusive nature of their clientele. By the very nature of the specialty goods stores, they often generate their own traffic, but customer flow can be helped by similar stores in the vicinity. And just as there are several different types of stores, there are also several different types of locations. In the downtown business district usually has lower rents, better transportation, and people live close to where they work. In these areas, the surrounding businesses that operate in these areas, such as governments, financial businesses, and large firms, they're the key customers for businesses that are located in a downtown business district. Freestanding stores may be best for customers who have brand or company loyalty over those who identify with a given shop. These stores usually are in low-cost areas with good parking, independent hours and operations, and restricted competition. They tend to attract a more entrepreneurial customer. And finally, there are shopping centers and malls. Shopping centers are planned and built only after they are rigorously studied. They require a large investment, and in order to be successful, they must draw a high volume of traffic and contain at least one strong, nationally recognized successful store that can be assured of traffic and contain and they can be assured that that store is going to sign a lease that will span several decades. Businesses that locate in shopping centers and shopping malls hope that the anchor store will attract enough business to keep the shopping center alive, prosperous, and growing. And when you rent an apartment, the landlord will tell you the rent for the apartment and whether or not it includes utilities. Now, in a commercial lease, there's a lot more to it. When you calculate the total amount of the rent to be paid, commercial leases often require that the tenants pay maintenance, real estate taxes, and some type of association fee. Now, this example shows a baseline calculation of annual rent expense for a single commercial location. The landlord will expect that the tenants pay for maintenance of the common areas. Even though the commercial tenant does not own the property, the landlord will still expect the tenant to pay the real estate taxes. And this amount is not included in the rent. That is a separate figure. In this example, the rent is $22,500. At this particular commercial location, there's a merchant association fee of 10%, and that amount must be added to the rent to be paid as well. Now you can see from this example that it is very different from how you would rent an apartment. And keep in mind that many landlords require an additional percentage of rent after a certain level of gross retail sales has been reached. That means that as your business becomes more successful, your rent will automatically increase. So when we think about planning facilities, we have to determine a lot more than merely deciding on the product we are going to manufacture. We have to identify our operations and the activities that we will be conducting in the building. We have to determine the space we're going to need. After all, we do not want to commit to a building lease for the next 15 or 20 years, maybe longer, only to find out that the building was too small from the very beginning. Before we commit to a building lease, we should decide on the best layout. Another important consideration is whether or not there will be telecommuting requirements for additional facility needs. Now, there are plenty of reasons why an employer might offer telecommunication opportunities to its employers. Employees usually like some flexibility in the hours they work, and working from home allows them to wear everyday clothes instead of higher-priced work clothes. In many areas of the country, employees save hundreds of dollars each month on parking. There is no commute time. Office politics is avoided. Micromanagement is not possible. There is a greater time with family and higher productivity. And there's a key benefit, a good benefit to the environment. But before we leave this subject, let's talk about the reality of telecommuting. In many cases, employees have come to me with a different story. In fact, I have had employees ask me if they could start coming into the office because they would prefer not to telecommute. They shared with me their experiences, and at the same time that telecommuting offers flexibility in working hours, some employees have complained that it is actually harder to start work on time, not easier. Employees have actually admitted that they dress for work when they telecommute because they feel more professional when they are professionally dressed. It also opens up the telecommuting venue to video conferences and other types of visual communication when people are dressed properly. Some employees have expressed that they miss seeing their coworkers, and although they feel they communicate with the office on a daily basis, they feel like they're out of the loop. They feel that they don't know what's going on. Family can be a tremendous distraction when telecommuting. Employees have told me that they find it difficult to concentrate on their work because they're tempted to stop for a moment and load the dishwasher, or start a load of laundry, or take an hour and mow the lawn, or even partake in an afternoon nap. For these employees, productivity is lower. So I share these experiences with you so that you will not be surprised if one day you're offered an opportunity to telecommute on your job and you find that it's not everything that you thought it would be. So if you decide you're going to let your employees telecommute, you should spend quite a bit of time determining whether or not telecommuting is right for you and your company. You should develop a plan and talk to several of the managers and gather their opinions. Make sure that training and equipment are available, and establish a start date on which to allow telecommuting. I want to take a moment and just look at a sample layout. You will notice in this sample layout that plenty of time has been taken to plan all the square footage in the plant. You will see, let me get this marker up right here. You will see that the entire manufacturing line right here has been included in the layout. Any equipment that will be used in the plant, that has been included in the plan. There's a drill right there. Conveyor systems have been planned. This is a conveyor system. Receiving areas right here, drum receiving, and the shipping area. That has been indicated, the outbound shipping area. Even restrooms and the entryway and the office, they have been established. Now, this is a sample of a cafeteria, and you will see in this case, this is a simple layout, but the customer patterns have been identified here. Every one of these lines is part of how they anticipate that the customers are going to come through the lines. They go this way as well, exit by the cashiers. And you will see that not only have the serving lines been established, and they've indicated where the location of the cashiers are going to be, but the tray returns have also been set up. That's not a tray return. That's actually trays and flatware. They don't have a tray return. They should add a tray return. So before we wrap up the discussion on facility layout, let's focus on some issues that should be considered when you are planning a production site. You always want to allow sufficient space for movement. And we're not only talking about the movement of the employees, but also sufficient amount for forklifts and hand trucks, transport vehicles, and conveyor systems. We want to have a very good estimate on our energy usage and in what parts of the plant the energy will be focused, making sure that there's a sufficient number of electrical outlets, fuse boxes, alternative energy sources, safety equipment, and proper lighting is important. It's part of the important part of the planning process as well. Employee safety should always be a consideration, and working conditions must be maintained not only for safety but also for comfort. Production plants need to be properly ventilated with a sufficient number of air handlers and heat exchangers. Cleanliness and maintenance plans should also provide for the dismantling of large pieces of equipment right there on the floor, and provide for the possibility of a large piece of equipment having to be removed from the plant, possibly on a flatbed truck. In many plants, there are numerous cargo bay doors located at strategic locations throughout the plant, specifically for the purpose of removing large pieces of equipment. These cargo bay doors are normally not opened for any other reason. Another important consideration is product quality. Some plants manufacture products that must be manufactured in a sterile or near sterile environment, and these plants will be maintained differently. These plants will be maintained and ventilated in such a way that contaminants and pollutants are routinely flushed from the plant. Plants that manufacture food or beverages for human consumption must be approved by the health department, and in many cases by the Food and Drug Administration. These plants must be designed in a way that allows for tight quality control, cleanliness, and a high level of routine maintenance. The final consideration is aesthetics. It's important that the plant be pleasing to the eye. After all, hundreds, if not thousands, of employees will spend the majority of their time there. The colors selected for the plant floors and the walls, the decor and the break rooms, and the type and quality of lighting are all important quality of life issues to employees and management. Many plants have nice employee break rooms and a full service cafeteria to meet the needs of the employees. So it's very important when establishing any type of plan to also have a method for improving it. Now in this case, a plan to improve operations includes 5 basic steps. First, state the problem. Second, collect and record any information collected. Third, develop and analyze alternatives. Fourth, select or install the best alternative with a suitable system of follow-up. And the final step is to establish performance standards that determine whether or not the process has been implemented and if it's actually working properly. Now, although we have discussed facility layout in this mini lecture, we're assuming that these 5 steps this 5-step process applies to facility layouts and other areas of business. So this includes the mini lecture on Chapter 12. Please make sure that you read the chapter and consult it when answering your homework questions.